Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's Tour Catch-Up, sponsored by DownloadTennis.com.
Sinner sinks Medvedev in Vienna.
Felix finds form in Basel.
And the WTA Finals get underway in Cancun.
Kim, Chris, today is the 30th of October and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. Jannik Sinner is your winner in Vienna. Felix Auger-Aliassime wins in Basel. And guys, we have booked our flights to Malaga for the Davis Cup finals. Although my initial excitement, it has gone awry because it all went to pot, didn't it, for some of the GB players this week, thanks to injury?
Well, it seems like they're dropping like flies, so I don't know if we'll have a GB team to support in Malaga in a few weeks' time.
Who would get called upon, me or Chris?
I don't think it matters if Novak Djokovic is playing, who plays, whether it's us or someone who's picked up a racket before.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it, but that would provide a lot of entertainment for me if either one of you stepped on court with Novak Djokovic. But do not fear,
I'll
listeners,
wear the
that
Tennis
won't
Weekly
be happening.
merch. I'll be repping
if you're
the
in
merch,
that's fine.
It's
I
fine.
thought
That's fine then, yeah.
we're way more likely to get on court if we, at tournaments have their little mini rackets.
And
we could
actually,
play with them.
and arguably, maybe the goatee is still intact, and I think that could put off Novak Djokovic if I did step onto a court with him.
What do you mean when the goat met the goatee?
Oh, yes.
Well. Actually,
Very niche content there.
You're both sporting some facial hair as we're recording this.
I think he's copying me. I've had this for years, Joel.
But Chris, how are you doing? Because you are back from Vienna. I think you've literally just landed and you've come straight to record. So thank you so much.
Yes, I've just landed. All is well. And I mean, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but an absolutely fabulous event where the seeds did well. I was very worried after what happened in Stockholm and the week before, where no one seemed to be able to win who was trying to get to the ATP finals, whereas we had some pretty exciting matches with some very highly ranked players. So I can't complain.
Yeah, it's great that you were there for Tennis Weekly, attending the Vienna Open. But what's been your highlights of the past week? Aside from your trip to Vienna, Chris, what's been your highlight from the tour?
Ooh, well, I was going to say the riding school because Joel said I had to go there. I did not go.
What? You didn't take up my tourism advice?
I did see it. I much more like to follow Kim's advice and take in maybe the opera, for example, or go to the CC Museum or something like that. But my highlight had to be, and I know this is very bad because I was in Vienna, but it was actually over in Basel where a very confused umpire actually got two players confused. He got Holger Rune and Casper Ruud confused because Holger was very annoyed at the poor sort of physios they had there. He was having one of his usual rants. And the umpire goes, most of the time, you're good, Casper. And Holger goes, I'm not Casper. And it kind of makes perfect sense because he must be thinking, no one's ever had any problem with Casper before. Like, why is he so grumpy today? And turns out he just got the wrong player and he's the umpire. So whatever we say about the WTA later in the podcast, maybe some of the ATP officials haven't also got it completely locked down either.
That is embarrassing, isn't it? Not even knowing which player is on court or getting them mixed up. You'd think they would know their players
from each other.
It's on the scoreboard. It's
literally on the iPad in front of them.
Just because like two of the letters in their surname is the same and they're both Scandinavian. I mean, really. But Joel, what about you? What's caught your fancy from the last week on tour or off tour?
Well, I've been very excited because there's a new tennis event coming to London in mid-December in the off-season. That's the Ultimate Tennis Showdown. Now, some of our listeners might be aware this event has been going across the world this season, and it's landing in London from the 15th to the 17th of December. It is the finals of the event for this season, and we've already got some of the players lined up. Casper Ruud's going to be there, Rublev, Gael Monfils, and Wu Yibing of China as well. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I mean, I feel like we're always spoilt with, with tennis in the UK, and I'm really excited given, I say, the caliber of players, top 10 players, in an innovative, interesting format that has caught my eye this season. I think it's going to be a very, very, very exciting and entertaining one.
It can kind of fill the void that we have in London, at that time for the ATP Finals. We used to always get spoilt with that. So I feel like getting to see some top players in London come December might be a bit of a hark to the past, no?
Yeah, it's definitely giving me World Tour Finals vibes from the 2010s. So
it's not nice. WTF, it's UTS now.
Ooh.
Oh dear, those were the days. Well, talking about tour finals, my highlight has been from the WTA Finals, which are just underway in Cancun, but not so much the tennis, but the the nice sort of ceremony before the finals begin, where everyone gets dressed up in nice outfits. They have been posing on the beach for a photo of the waves crashing in the background, and every single player seemed to get the wear white memo, except for Iga Swiatek, who came in a nice sort of bright red long sleeved dress. So the photo of all of the top 8 lined up with the trophy that they all want to win. Lovely photo, but do you think Iga was deliberately going for red, or do you think she just didn't have a white dress?
Honestly, this is tricky. When I saw it, I thought this can't be real, because it just is so unusual, because normally everyone wears something a bit different, but it almost felt like there was a dress code, and maybe Iga set the dress code out.
They didn't send the invite to Iga Swiatek.
Maybe
obviously.
She didn't get the memo, but it's almost like, when you have a party where they say everyone should wear black and white, and then someone wears red because they're having the party. I feel like maybe it's Iga Swiatek's world and the rest of them are just living in it based on this picture.
I didn't know if she was trying to reassert her authority, like, I should be the world number one, I'm going to do my own thing and wear red.
It's giving lead singer energy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, on another note, is there any particular dresses that caught your eye? Any favourites?
Well, Kim, I wanted to just say that, did Coco Gauff steal Iga Swiatek's shoes or sandals? Because they are also red.
Yeah,
that's true. Actually,
maybe it was wear white or red, and everyone went white. That could be it. You could have spotted it there, Joel.
Yeah,
I think the Grecian style. I'm loving Onz's outfit. It's slightly off-white, looks beautiful with the sand, and I've seen some pictures of it really flowing. So I think that one is very good. I think there are a few brave contenders in heels because they are very far into the sand. So if I were them, I would be much more likely to have, an espadrille or a flat, Kim. That's my feedback.
Well, Chris, you are the fashionista. I remember when you interviewed Felix Auger-Aliassime, he commented on how nice your suit was. So I trust your opinion when it comes to clothes.
And I trust his based on what he said that day.
And we'll get on to Felix a bit later because he had a great week in Basel. But we're going to kick off this week's podcast, rounding up the tennis in Vienna, which you were very much at, just coming back just today from the city. You were at the final, though, Jannik Sinner against Daniil Medvedev. Chris, it was 3 sets. You said it was a cracking final. You thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved seeing all the footage that you sent us from there. Jannik Sinner coming through 6-3 in the 3rd set. It's his 2nd victory over Daniil Medvedev this month. So he's obviously learning to get the better of him. But what do you think made the difference in this match, and what got Sinner over the finish line when it came to that 3rd set?
I think I've seen Sinner kind of throughout the year. I've seen him in one of the most difficult matches to view, which was against Altmaier at the French, where he managed to find a way to lose that, and it felt like maybe this wasn't going to be the breakthrough year we thought it was going to be. I saw him struggle past Stan at the US Open, and it was just so unbelievably refreshing to watch him play so well, so freely, to move so well, and be able to keep it up consistently pretty much across the 3 sets and the 2 sets I saw from him in the quarterfinal as well. So for me, it was a case of plan A was working, which is take the ball down the line, take the risk, and it paid off. I mean, it was so clean off the ground. I think in terms of striking, I don't think I've seen 2 players play better in the flesh and kind of almost test each other, because this was such long rallies with such great play and such athleticism, and barely any unforced errors. So I think it was one of the best finals of the year.
Excellent. And Joel, what did you make of the Vienna final when you kind of tuned in from home?
Did you see me, Joel? I had a sign up.
I was looking out for you. I did not see you.
Row Z I was in.
I was just curious, actually, from being in the arena, was there a slight pro-Sinner vibe in the crowd, or was it pro-Medvedev?
I mean, it's basically a home tournament, because obviously he's German speaking and his family are German speaking. It's actually his Italian is not necessarily his most comfortable language that he speaks. So he is welcomed there like it's a home event. It's a bit like Ostrava, where Iga Swiatek had more support than Krejcikova because of how close it was with the border. So it very much had that feeling. And at times, I think Medvedev was gesturing to the crowd to say, come on, I'm playing pretty well as well. And he needed a bit of support, which is, you're surprised because he's a very popular player, Medvedev. But if Sinner was on the court, he almost took the mantra from when Team was knocked out, it became the Sinner show for Vienna.
I mean, he had a great week, and I look at the run he's been on. For a 500 draw, this was pretty tough. I mean, we were talking about first round Sinner versus Ben Shelton. That's a very tough opening. Then going through to Sonigo, Tiafoe, then Rublev, even just to get to the final of a 500. I think it just shows what a high level and prestigious event I think that Vienna Open is, and how it's almost kind of carved it out in the calendar. But in the final, I felt that almost every point was a battle in itself. It was so captivating, I thought, and so entertaining. And people are talking about this rivalry that is blossoming almost kind of out of nowhere. I know the head-to-head is still very much favourable to Daniil Medvedev, but the way they come onto the court and they go toe-to-toe from the baseline. I personally felt that Sinner almost beat Daniil Medvedev at his own game from the back of the court. I think this surface maybe was a little bit slower than surfaces he's played on recently in like Beijing, which I think was a bit faster. And I was thinking, was that going to suit Medvedev? But yeah, I think Sinner just executed better. Medvedev's serving at times maybe could have been a bit more on point. But yeah, Sinner just seems to be in a really good groove at the moment, and it's interesting. I mean, Paris is coming up. I don't know if he's going to be knackered from the exertions of Vienna, and whether he might take it easy going into the tour finals, but I would just keep on going because he's building up this momentum that's reminding me a little bit of how Coco Gauff started at the start of the the American hardcourt swing, that she followed through all the way to the US Open.
Well, we have seen players in the past have a tremendous run of form right at the close of the season. So you're quite right, Joel. Perhaps he will continue in this run. And I think it's nice that, he's played Medvedev a couple of times this year. Medvedev got the better of him earlier in the year. They met in the finals in Rotterdam and Miami. Sinner's managed to kind of level that off now. I think 2 wins apiece this year. So perhaps going into 2024, this is the rivalry that's going to develop
it's food
further.
for thought, isn't it?
Yeah, perhaps it's not going to be Sinner Alcaraz. Perhaps Sinner Medvedev is going to be what we never knew we needed.
Yeah, in your face, Wimbledon marketing team.
And you mentioned earlier, 7 of the top 8 seeds got through to the quarterfinals. So the seeds actually doing very well in this tournament. We spoke last week about how they hadn't had a great week previously. So actually performing, which is nice for all the fans like you, Chris. Going and attending. You want to see the top players at the latter stages, and that's what people largely got. Chris, just before we kind of touch upon, other tournaments, any tips for anyone thinking of going to this event, in future years that you'd like to share with our listeners?
For me, it's one of the best kind of events I've been to from a size perspective. It's a fantastic arena. It's a fantastic atmosphere. Obviously, it's indoors, so you're going to get play no matter what. It's very well run. They attract great players, and it feels like if you are thinking about going to a 500, it's at a great point of the season as well, where there is this big prize of the ATP finals on the line. So there's a lot of focus on the matches, a lot of intensity, and I think sometimes at the start of the year you can get tournaments where players are sort of, they've added to their schedule, they're going to see where they fall by the end of the year. But this really did have kind of a big sort of event feel for a 500, and felt like almost the warm-up act towards Paris. So I would say if you are fancying one out of the two 500s that are on this week, from my experience at Vienna, I'd say it's a no-brainer. And also take in some of the sites. Ask Kim for some details. She can give you some great tips.
Yeah, well, I did go to Vienna earlier in the year. The city has so much on offer. And I feel like actually at this time of the year, you could do a tennis and city kind of travel, because you got Paris, Vienna. Like, these are great European cities. So you could definitely do a bit of like a road trip through Europe.
And in Italy.
Yeah, exactly.
Kim, I feel like you're volunteering to open up the Tennis Weekly podcast travel agency.
Tennis Weekly Tours.
Tennis Weekly Tours. Yes,
well,
with Kim.
never say never. Let's take our tour bus to Basel for the Swiss indoors, because we had another 500 event there. Again, lots to play for as we get closer to the end of season finals. And we had a player win this event who has had a pretty shocking season, to be honest. But he came out on top. He's defended his title from last year here at Basel. And that was Felix Auger-Aliassime, who got the better of Hubert Hurkacz in 2 tie-break sets in the final.
Shock horror. Tie breaks and Hubert Hurkacz.
I know. I mean, this just goes with the territory, doesn't it? But yeah, great for Felix. You know, he came into this match with a 17-18 tour level record this season, which for a top player is not what you want at all. Yet this week, you know, he's managed to come through, defend his title, clinch this trophy, and, you know, have a cracking week, which is kind of come out of nowhere, because we weren't really expecting this based on his form running into it. What do you think he did so well, Joel, that got him the win this week?
I mean, he just looked like a player reborn. I mean, particularly in that semi-final against Holger Rune, 6-3, 6-2 straight sets. I just felt like he overpowered Rune at times, and particularly on his ground strokes, his forehand, it's just such effortless power that it reminded you, I think, of the talent, the pure talent that Felix Auger-Aliassime holds, that he hasn't necessarily shown it that much this season. And I almost felt like he sort of fell back in love with tennis with this tournament, because of the tennis that he was showing, the ground strokes from the baseline, his serve as well, and putting that all together, yeah, it was very, very impressive from him. And I think that the back end of last season, he went on a run of, you know, successive tournaments where he was champion, and he really does revel, I think, in the indoor environment, roof over the head. I'm sure Team Canada are very happy to see this as well, with, you know, Davis Cup finals, you know, coming up. And he's almost used it to get his mojo back, because I was sort of wondering, like, when's it going to happen? It needs to happen, given all the points he's had to defend. So it's taken its time, but maybe he's just got back to enjoying tennis with the edge off things. Whereas for Hubert Hurkacz, with tour final spot on the line, maybe the pressure just got to him in that final.
Yeah, because he's very, very close to trying to make that final 8, whereas I think FAA is a bit too far down. Like, he's number 29 in the race now. He was 59 in the race, which goes to show how bad his season had been. What I love, though, is that Felix, you know, he lost his first 8 finals. As we know, it was a big deal. You know, he kept getting to finals, not able to get the win. But now, his past 6 finals he's been in, he's won 5 of them. So I think to be able to turn that statistic around is impressive, even if he hasn't had the best of seasons. Chris, what do you make of Felix and his attitude and ability when it comes to finals, when he finally does get there now? Because it's almost like a complete reverse from, you know, when he was first getting to finals.
Yeah, I think it was really something that stuck in his head, playing in those moments. And I think getting over the line the first time and kind of getting that final win, I think it is a really big weight off you. And I think it means that in those moments, you aren't just kind of got to get one. You know, you're thinking, right, I can add to my collection, which is quite a different mindset. I think in terms of the way that he's played this year, I think a lot of people thought coming into this final that he would be tested again in a similar way, where these finals they're not easy to win. And against a player like Hurkacz, who's obviously coming on a winning run, it's definitely a case where he wasn't the favourite in that, and these were 2 very tight tie-break sets. So if you aren't playing well, and you have lost a lot of close matches like he has recently, you'd have to say that Felix was not the favourite. So it's definitely a positive in what has been a very difficult year for him. And it's not going to get that much better unless he can pull some really great results, just because he had such a great run at the end of last season. I mean, he's got a Paris semi-final to defend and the points from the ATP finals that will be dropping off, where he had that sort of remarkable result over kind of a not 100% Nadal at the ATP finals. So it's not plain sailing yet. He has dropped, as you say, to 29 in the rankings. So it's going to be tricky, but hopefully, and as we do always say this when someone has a good result, we don't want to jinx it. Hopefully it's almost the curse is lifted, and he can get back to playing some of that tennis he was playing at the end of last season, because when he is playing well, for anyone who saw it, I mean, when he beat Rune and made that look pretty simple in that first set, I mean, that was stunning tennis, similar to when he beat Alcaraz at the same tournament last year in the same round in the semi-finals. It was, really putting your mark in the sand, and if he could do that a bit more consistently, we can see him challenging at slams again, hopefully.
And I mean, he beat Holger Rune in the semi-final as well. What did you make of that, Chris? Because Holger Rune was the top seed here, but Felix beat him pretty comfortably. Any thoughts on Rune this week?
Well, I'll tell you what. The strange thing was that one of the people who was doing the most promo for Vienna was Boris Becker. So he was always on the screen saying how much he liked being in Vienna, and then I saw that he wasn't even in Vienna. So that was a bit confusing, because I thought, wait, is he allowed to go to Switzerland? Like, what's going on here? It felt like it was a bit odd, but he was with his coach. So it was his first sort of week playing fully with his new coaching setup, and again, it's a better result than he has had. I was that person who was streaming his match against Echeverry whilst I was in a break at the tennis over in Vienna, so I was doing you proud there, Joel, in terms of commitment to tennis, and it seemed like he's up for competing again, and I think that win in the first round was the big win for him, because he was able to kind of overturn that result from the week before, where he lost early in the first round in straight sets, and he actually lost that first set and came through. So a positive week. I don't think he's a cert to qualify for the end of season finals, and Joel, I'll bring you in here because we will talk about it a bit later. But I mean, it's going to come down to how you play in the final tournament, really, before qualifying, and he's got to defend the title. So it's sink or swim, really. And this was a nudge towards the line, but he isn't over it yet.
Again, it just feels like there's this element of pressure there, and it does make the end of the season exciting in terms of those last spots for Turin, who's going to get them. And it feels like, maybe the pressure is telling on not just Hurkacz, but others as well. And Casper Ruud, he was the second seed. I mean, he went out to Dominic Stricker in the second round, so it still feels like very much up for grabs going down to the wire, and we'll just have to see. But it feels like at the moment, whoever is in that last spot, arguably they're probably making up the numbers more than anything.
Your favourite phrase, Joel, making up the numbers. I know. We said for the WTA Finals that no one was doing that.
No one is making up the numbers.
Well, and then we had Mukova withdraw, so technically someone is making up the numbers, literally. Yeah. But
Well, did anyone make up the numbers at the Elite Trophy in Zhuhai? Because we have had, that's now been completed. We've had Beatriz Haddad Maia winning that event, beating Qinwen Zheng in the final. Again, two tie-break sets in this final as well. A very, very long tie-break in the first set as well. But Haddad Maia getting her third career tour title by beating Qinwen Zheng. What did you make of this? Because I think one of you had Haddad Maia down to win this.
Was this you, Joel? Honestly,
it wasn't me.
I had Qinwen Zheng winning.
Did I go Krejcikova?
I think you
always put Krejcikova.
I always go. Did you go Madison Keys, Kim? I can't remember.
I said Keys or Kasatkina or Ostapenko. I can't remember.
We really did spread it out, and none of us. We maybe mentioned her.
I was waiting. I had like the WhatsApp message in my drafts because I genuinely thought Qinwen Zheng was gonna, win it with her home crowd in Zhuhai and and pull out the victory in the final. But Haddad Maia is such a feisty competitor. She's got such a good, I think, mental approach to the game, and I just don't think she was fazed by the power of Qinwen Zheng and what she can bring to the court, but also the context and the crowd as well. And it was a really competitive final. I thought it was a great tournament, to be honest. I thought there was some really great matches. The semi-final as well between Zheng and Zhu Lin of China was another 3 hour plus battle. I thought there were some very, very good matches, but Haddad Maia, I think just mentally, she's just so strong, and even in a really tough environment such as this against a home player with home support, she got the job done, and it was very, very impressive.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I mean, no one really was making up the numbers perhaps here, because Haddad Maia was the 8th seed. So apart from, I think, Zhulin, who was the sort of wild card, she was the one that statistically was least likely to win. But, she got, she won all her matches, didn't she? So really coming out comfortable on top. And this was her first title, actually, since, I think, Birmingham 2022, first title on hard courts in, about a year and a half. So actually, considering she's had some really good results, like semis at the French, but to come home with, yes, this isn't the WTA Finals, but it's still, a decent tournament. It's kind of the next best thing, isn't it?
A really big boost.
Yeah, really big boost. Great way to finish the season for her.
And she had a really unfortunate event. This was in Guadalajara, where her shower door actually shattered and injured both of her hands. So she actually had to pull out of a few tournaments in this sort of freak accident. So kind of after that incident, I think a lot of people will be pleased to see that she was able to come through and have a good end to the season, because that is, I mean, that's awful luck, and she was due a good bit of luck, and it's come in the form of a title.
And she won the doubles as well, I do believe. So
when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, precisely. But one peculiarity that's kind of surfaced, because we've got this event having just finished, and we've got the WTA Finals in Cancun underway, starting. I was trying to get my head around this, but Chris, you're probably the best place to explain it. If you're a player who's, say, like ranked 9 in the world, would you go and play the WTA Finals, or would you play this Elite Trophy? Because you're sort of on the cusp, aren't you? But what would actually be the better tournament to play in terms of advancing your career, like ranking points, prize money? I mean, where would you go if you were a
That
player?
is the question, and this is something that we'll go to Joel with this as well. But there is this sort of strange WTA loophole here, where the ATP only has the ATP Finals, whereas the WTA has the Elite Trophy as well as the WTA Finals, meaning that kind of in these sort of end of season or post-season sort of competitions, where you are able to get a very odd thing where you might not qualify for the top 8, but you might be 9th and you win the title of the Elite Trophy, and that could put you into the top 8, which seems a bit odd if the season was done and you didn't make it there. So they do have this strange thing where you get 125 points for losing a match in the round robin. So just from showing up in Cancun for the WTA Finals, you will leave with 375 points. So if it were me and I was thinking, you know what, I don't fancy my chances, I would probably bank on the 375 points, because the winner got 700 in the Elite Trophy. But it's a strange thing. And I think, Joel, you can come in terms of ATP Finals. If you lose your matches, you get 0 points. In the WTA Finals, if you lose your matches, you end up with more than a 250, almost a 500 final in your points. It seems like it's a reward for getting there, but is it a bit strange to reward kind of losses?
Do you know what? I feel like after 12 months of a season, I think there should be a reward in getting there, and regardless of your performance, I actually do think like you should get ranking points even if you do go 0-3, because even though, as I say, you've gone out, in the first round or in the group stage, just getting there, I think, is an achievement and should be recognised. And yeah, I know you're playing the best players in the world, but I think personally, I think you should get ranking points if you are defeated, because it's at the end of the season for me, and it's the top 8. It's invitational. You got to make it. I think there should be some reward to that.
And the prize money, Kim. I should have said that. The prize money's definitely bigger at the WTA Finals. So maybe I'd go for that one, because just from turning up, my appearance fee, no appearance fees, but you do win more prize money even if you don't come first or end up winning the title or anything like that.
Yeah, and the other thing about the Elite Trophy is that the doubles, it's not the actual pairs that have come like 9th to
it's a bit of a hodgepodge.
It's just anyone, basically.
It feels very cursory.
Yeah. But not that we're taking anything away from Haddad Maia's doubles title.
No, we love doubles, but it does feel a bit strange when you have kind of like one of the players playing singles and she's chosen not to play in the doubles, because then it feels like it's more People who are there that feel like having a swing. It feels like every team is a wild card. Put it that way.
Yeah, no. Well, fair play, and well done to Haddad Maia for coming through in Zhuhai. We're going to take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half where we'll be discussing Jenson Brooksby's 18-month drugs ban from tennis, Simona Halep's appeal to the Court of Arbitration, and all the action so far at the WTA Finals and as well at the Paris Masters, which have both got underway. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, sponsored by downloadtennis.com. Now we're going to move on to a bit of par for the courts. And I do believe that, Chris, you have one up your sleeve. Is that correct?
I do indeed. I have got one. We are going to be testing your knowledge from a decade ago. I thought, you know what, 2019 was the test last time. Why not throw it back an extra 6 years at a time when tennis was arguably, there were some great rivalries and some fantastic competition that happened at the end of season finals. So in a similar vein to the Elite Trophy, we are looking for the 8 players that took to the court in 2013. So no alternates, no swapping in. It's the players that qualified and played.
Gotcha.
It's going to be tricky. It's going to be tough. Who's feeling the most confident? Because you can go second. Joel's smiling. Kim, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. It's fine. It's all good. I did actually go to quite a lot of this tournament. I was there for most of the days. And actually, Joel, I think this is where we met for the first time.
I think you're right, actually. At the, I believe it was the Corona Bar.
The Corona Bar.
Weekly history. Well, did you take to the court?
This was the formation. Actually, this was just me meeting Kim in a bar next to some tennis.
Sounds rather interesting.
Very close to the practice court, I think.
There used to be practice courts, but there was a little mini, kind of like paddle, but like a mini tennis thing, which was hilarious. And I remember a dodgy burrito I had from that bar, which didn't end well the next day. But anyway, players from that year, Novak Djokovic.
Yes, that is a correct answer, unsurprisingly.
Roger Federer.
Yes, Roger Federer did play.
Rafael Nadal.
The number 1 seed, indeed.
So...
You're not really allowed to say Rafa, are you, Joel? You had to leave that one for Kim.
Yeah, I'm just amazed Rafa was at the Tour Finals, to be honest. It doesn't normally make it that far. I'm going to say 2013, Tomas Berdych.
That's a correct answer.
Stan Wawrinka.
Oh, that's a good shout.
That's a correct answer. Well done, Kim. Knocking off all the Swiss answers there.
I don't know if is this past his peak? I think he still would have been in there. Thomas Berdych? David Ferrer?
I'm not going to let you have Thomas Berdych twice, but I will let you have David Ferrer.
Yes.
That's the correct answer.
Come on.
Oh, God.
I think there's just 2 names left to get.
I know. Oh, 2013.
And a noticeable absence, of course.
Noticeable absence? Oh, okay. Was this person actually not injured at this time? I know he was in the doubles, to one of them. But I don't think this person was in singles.
Cast your mind back. What do you remember seeing, Kim?
Well, I remember seeing Stan Wawrinka against Rafa, but I've said those 2. I'm just trying to remember what players I saw walking to and from various places.
I'm going to have to push you for time,
sorry,
Kim.
Oh gosh. Del Potro.
Oh.
That's a correct answer.
Oh!
Oh.
That means it's a shootout. You have to give the correct answer, Joel, to draw with Kim.
I've got two names in my head. Who would have been around that time?
Oh, this is tense. How confident are you feeling?
Who am I going to go with? I'm going to go with Marin Cilic.
I have to tell you that Kim has won.
Oh.
Yes.
A real tricky one to guess here. What was your second guess?
Grigor Dimitrov.
No, Kim, do you have any more names? Anyone else you remember seeing walking the halls?
No. Oh, I've got no idea.
I remember
I'm out.
seeing a lot of Fernando Verdasco, but he won the doubles, I think, with David Marrero that year.
He was there, that's correct. And it was with Marrero. Wow, Kim. If you'd done the doubles instead, Joel, you'd be in real trouble.
But in terms of singles, who are we waiting for? Grigor Dimitrov?
It's a French player.
Songa? Monfils?
It was Richard Gasquet.
Oh, I'd never have got him.
Would
Wow,
never have got that. Wow.
He qualified in 8th. So in order, unfortunately, Murray did have to pull out injured. But in order of qualification, it was Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, David Ferrer, Juan Martín del Potro, Thomas Berdych, Roger Federer, Stan Wawrinka, and Richard Gasquet. So he was the 9th qualifier because Murray was the 4th qualifier. So well remembered. And who knew that I'd hit upon Tennis Weekly history, or touched upon it in that sense. And Kim, you were paying more attention than we thought after that dodgy burrito.
I know, indeed. Well, thanks, Chris, for giving us a trip down memory lane. Let's bring it back to 2023 now, because we have had a question in our mailbag from Vanessa via email, who said that... Hi guys, in Cancun at the official draw ceremony, the WTA Final 8 revealed who would be their dream celebrity +1 that they would like to walk the red carpet with. So we had people say various things. Jessie Pegula said Dua Lipa. Iga Swiatek said Taylor Swift. And Elena Rybakina very sweetly said her sister, who I don't think is a celebrity, but you know, that's who she wants to go down the red carpet with. So Vanessa is asking us who our +1 would be for a red carpet, which has got us all thinking. So
and
thanks
we can't
for your
say
question,
each other because
Vanessa.
Obviously Joel does consider himself a celebrity at this point.
And we can't say Rafael Nadal, Kim. I'm already putting that out there.
Okay,
He's a
fine.
celebrity. He's a celebrity, no?
So, well, I was thinking... I mean, if I go down the Rybakina route, then I would say like my boyfriend, obviously, if we're on a red carpet. But if I'm thinking celebrity, I would say Miranda Hart. I think she would be a laugh to go down a red carpet with.
Okay.
Oh, that would be quite fun.
Gallop down the carpet. She likes tennis as well. So
There's
there we
probably
go.
a bit of a height difference there as well, so it'd be quite entertaining to see in person.
I could wear very tall heels, perhaps.
On the beach in Cancun, goodness. That would be
What
brave.
about you guys? Who would you have?
I've said Daniel Craig for some reason.
Sorry, what? You wanted to... Daniel Craig?
Daniel Craig. I think he's
Bond
walked enough.
vibes.
He's walked enough red carpets in his
Certainly
time.
walked up a few beaches, hasn't he?
He can show the rope. He can show me the ropes of how to do a red carpet properly, and wear a tux as well. I think as James Bond. So yeah, I've gone Daniel Craig.
Goodness. So you went for almost like a experienced red carpeter. I've gone quite differently from this. I just thought go for the most famous person you can possibly think of, and I went for Beyonce, just because I think she's showed an interest in tennis before, and she might give me an in with Serena Williams, which could also be great. Yeah, so I think I probably followed the WTA players a bit more. I did see that Ons Jabeur said Jessica Alba. I'm like,
Oh, that's quite a retro.
Are you a big fan of her skincare line? I was quite confused by that. But at least Maria Sakkari was the most honest, who said Henry Cavill. So I think maybe she thought, you know, who could be the best bit of arm candy she could get. Maybe in a similar way to what Joel went with Daniel Craig there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
would Daniel Craig be sporting a fellow goatee, perhaps? Facial hair?
Probably not.
a lad's trip to the WTA Finals.
Well, I liked what Vondrousova said. She said, "I have everyone I need," which is very, like, she must be practicing gratitude there. If she's
got a cat and a husband, right? That was the two people.
Yeah. So I thought her response was good fun. But thanks, Vanessa, for your question. Keep them coming. We love to see what you'd like us to answer in our mailbag each week. Let's move on to some updates as well from the tour. We're kind of going down the subject of drugs for the next few minutes because Jenson Brooksby, he has been suspended for 18 months, so he will not be coming back to tennis until January 2025, and this is because he missed 3 doping tests over a 12-month period. He has disputed one of those in particular. He did accept responsibility for the first and the third missed tests, but has disputed the second missed test. So we won't be seeing him around for a while unless for some reason this is overturned. What do you both make of this? I know, we heard that he, sort of had these this situation, but it's kind of been officially decided. But he will be appealing it. But what do you make of this, Chris? Any particular surprise at this decision?
I don't think that we are surprised. I mean, Brooksby hadn't been active on the tour. He wasn't training. He was doing some punditry here and there. Again, it's very similar to the EMA sort of drugs ban situation where it's a case of you can't miss 3 tests. And when we spoke to Casper in Boston, he did say that he'd had a couple of times in his career, I think he said he'd had 2 times that he'd missed tests because the whereabouts system isn't necessarily perfect. But in terms of kind of maintaining the integrity of the sport, I think debating one of the missed tests, saying that it was not your fault, is fine. But then I do think you have to throw attention to the other 2 missed tests, because the biggest reason that you would miss a test, and I'm not accusing him in any way of this, is because you don't think you're going to test negative. And so in terms of the incident in question, I do think I have some sympathy if the hotel room was never called. But overall, I think you have to send a message that players cannot afford to be on 2 missed tests. And it's very, very risky to be in that sort of a situation. And especially when it comes to questioning the second test, when you miss the third one, it feels like if that one was in question, you really have to be extra careful. So a tough lesson to learn, and I hope that he does come back and commit to playing on the tour, because he does have such a great and interesting game to watch. So disappointing for him, obviously, but I think a lesson learned.
He's sort of become like the forgotten man, I feel, in American tennis, because there was all this sort of noise and hype about him. I think, he had to have wrist surgery earlier in the season, and it basically just put him out of action for a long time. And Ben Shelton has come along. So, I hope to see him back at some point. But yeah, 3 missed tests to me, whether he's young and he's still kind of learning, I think it's just a lesson maybe he's going to have to take on the chin, that, he can't have his, for example, he can't have his phone on silent, or can't
in the hour, that's the hour they could come, and your phone is on silent and they will call you if you can't. So that's the thing, right?
Yeah, well, another player who is having issues with drug bans is obviously Simona Halep, because she was handed a ban by the International Tennis Integrity Agency for what they called intentional doping offences. She has, been banned for 4 years. She wouldn't be due to kind of come back until October 2026, by which time she'll be age 35. She has appealed. She has requested that the decision be set aside, and that her the length of her ban be reduced. So this is all because of irregularities in her athlete biological passport, but she has officially kind of appealed that decision and filed that.
She is not going quietly, is she? She wants, she's exploring absolutely every possibility, because I think she knows, like, time is short. Her career is coming into kind of the twilight years of a tennis player's career. I mean, if the ban is upheld, she'll be 35. Next time she would be able to step on a tennis court, and she obviously does not want that to happen. feels like she is innocent, and the only way she is going to be granted that innocence now is putting it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. It feels like this is the last stand. This is the last stand that she can take before, whether she likes it or not, something is going to be definite and finite.
If you have the money and the means, and you are in this situation and this is your career, there's no reason why you wouldn't take it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. I think this is not surprising news. I think they would have to obviously find, things that would overturn the positive test result that happened, as well as the blood passport. So it's going to be a tricky one. We did cover this at the time, so we do have some podcasts that talk about, the Halep case. And that was, if you look them up, they are the Davis Cup podcast that we had. It was I believe the first and second Davis Cup podcast to get the Tennis Weekly viewpoint there. But it does look like the journey for Simona Halep is ongoing on her quest to try and return to the tour and get this ban either overturned or reduced.
Yeah. Well, she's doing everything she can, and I guess we'll just have to wait for further updates and news. Meanwhile, the tour continues and players keep on playing, and we've got the WTA end of season finals out in Cancun at the moment. A bit of controversy since that has begun. We've had the opening groups kind of matches.
Kim, there was controversy before it began, I feel.
Well,
before there was a venue, there was controversy.
That is true. Controversial Cancun. I mean, we've had world number one Aryna Sabalenka coming out criticising the facilities, criticising the court, criticising the organisation, criticising the WTA. The court was finished just days before the tournament started on Sunday. She said that she doesn't feel safe moving around on the court. The bounce is not consistent. It's just not acceptable. There have been other players like Rybakina also speaking out against the court, and basically they're both saying they feel very disrespected by the WTA because, they're in charge of putting on a world-class event for world-class players, and they do not feel that it's living up to that. Joel, what do you make of what we've seen so far in Cancun and the kind of standard that we're seeing from not the tennis, but the actual court and the facilities?
I mean, it's just been one big shambles, from the very beginning. Making a tennis court from scratch is there's always going to naturally be more danger to that than going into an existing tennis stadium like Ostrava, for example, where you know what you're going to get. You might have played that tournament before. You know what that surface is going to be like. But if you make something from scratch, give players as little time as possible as little time as possible to adjust to the conditions, then of course you're going to get unhappy players because, this is the showpiece event. They want to show their skills, as much as possible to the crowds. And if they're not confident with what's under their feet, they're not going to feel like they can do that. And you can see that in terms of, it's not just an isolated person, saying it. We're seeing it now from multiple people in the final eight. I think Sabalenka, of course, is, I feel like, being the most vocal, but it's just very, very sloppy, and it's just a shame. I mean, I go back to the fact that we've got an absolutely stellar cast here, and the infrastructure is not, from what I've seen, it's not living up to their standards. I mean, seeing like the beach sand on the tennis court, it's not a good look, is it?
It's bad, and I think it is big in that, because last week we were talking about kind of the rebuttal from Steve Simon in terms of the WTA's financial situation, and what you'd want coming out of that would be an exemplary Cancun WTA Finals, and it has been, as you say, a shambles. And this is not a premier event. This is not being run like a premier event, and I think that is the difficulty here, is that the WTA is saying one thing, but this is not. It's not good. And I think when it comes down to kind of gender equality in the sport, this is not doing justice to women's tennis and the players who are at the top of the game. And they talk about the objectives they have. Well, maybe have the objective of choosing a venue for the WTA Finals, your biggest tournament that you organise, and make it so that the players feel safe and get a court that's finished more than one day before, because they were practicing on hotel courts that had just been resurfaced, and there were only two of them. And bear in mind, this is singles and doubles players who are there. So it's another bad move from the WTA. And you just hope that, I mean, I'm not sure what they can do to improve it, but it looks like the court isn't even playable today necessarily.
I think what's interesting is that, there were comments today coming out from Magda Linette, who's on the WTA Player Council, and she spoke about Ostrava versus Cancun, and she said the disadvantage in Ostrava was that we did not have 100% guarantee that all the girls would be able to play. If even one was not allowed into the country, the tournament would not take place, which would result in a huge penalty. And this was regarding kind of Russian and Belarusian players. But I almost feel like, well, okay, if that's the case and you wanted to go with Cancun, I'm a little bit like, well, you've got to accept that if you're going to go to somewhere that hasn't got a tennis court or an existing infrastructure in place in the first place, you're going to be running other risks as well. So I'm almost a little bit like, well, if the player council's kind of like signed it off or we're up to it.
But they didn't sign off shoddy workmanship when it came to the
I know they would
of it.
Probably assume
the
that
pitch deck, I'm pretty sure, said it wouldn't be finished one day
They
prior.
would assume that, they would get a premier tennis court and all that sort of stuff. But I still think, like, if something is being built from scratch on a very short time scale, you're asking for trouble.
Well, but then only thing I'd say if they want the top players to happen, because if you couldn't have Sabalenka there, for example, or if there were kind of other players who would kind of be not necessarily allowed to play in Czech Republic, the tournament wouldn't happen, is what they said. So it was a choice between, Saudi Arabia, Cancun and Ostrava, where you might not even be able to have the tournament.
It was like the worst best option.
Exactly. And that's the advert for WTA Finals in Cancun.
Well, maybe Vienna will hire us for the tourist board, but Cancun won't, seeing as we've spoken at quite differences between the two.
We'd happily go to the resort. Looks lovely.
Oh, yes. And that just goes to show, doesn't it, that the WTA players just feel let down by the WTA because the ATP seemingly have all this money to put on fantastic events and the ladies are just being let down, sadly, and it's just a really bad image, and players are upset, and obviously they're entitled to speak out about that, and we hope that for future years this will be really taken on board and we'll avoid this from happening again. I mean, in terms of the actual tennis, we have had Sabalenka absolutely thrash Sakkari in her opening match.
It was
for
brutal.
the loss of just one game, so she wasn't letting everything get to her, in terms of the actual result. We also had Jessie Pegula beat Rybakina 7-5, 6-2. Rybakina serving for the first set and then just kind of collapsing really and losing 10 of the next 12 games. So that's been the opening round of the Bacalhau group, I want to say. We've also got the Chetumal group, which has Swiatek, Goff, Jabeur and Vondrousova. Any quick predictions? Who do we think's winning this event? One name, Chris?
It's all about the red dress. It's all about Iga. Ooh. She's got that vibe.
Okay.
She's going to get back to world number one.
I think it's going to be tricky. I think Sabalenka, based on what we've seen, it's hard not to say her, but I think Iga's really hungry to get it back. But having said that, if I had to say one curveball, Ons, if you give her a court with a dodgy bounce, she has the most skills to deal with it, is what I'd say. Great point.
That's a great point. Joel, who are you going for?
Yeah, it's interesting because the players have been talking about the wind being a big factor. And I'm thinking about who that could benefit the most. If you're going to push me for one name...
Who is it? I can't tell who you're going to say.
I'm going to say Sabalenka. I'm going to be boring.
Of course he did.
I'm going to be boring. I've got to go with the form book.
You always
She's
go
been the
number one.
most consistent across the season.
Okay.
She absolutely dismantled Sakkari. I've just got to go Sabalenka.
Go on, Kim. Say something.
Give us a wild card.
Vondrousova then, I think the ultimate wild card. Really, I mean, I know she's the Wimbledon champion, but no one's really talking about her. So I do think that red dress though is doing it for me.
You think the red dress is
I honestly
X factor?
Lady in red.
She's laid down a marker there. That's for sure.
Yeah, she means.
All eyes on
Kim,
Iga.
you were giving the finals DJ. Lady in red. I'm waiting for that moment now.
I don't want to start singing it now, but I'm not going to torture
if
our
she
listeners
wins the
with that.
title, she could do karaoke in the red dress. That could be nice.
Yes. Well, we've been talking about WTA and karaoke recently, haven't we? But anyway, let's look at also, we'll be rounding up the WTA finals next week, but let's look at the Paris Masters, which is also underway. So we've got the 1000 event in Paris for the men. Novak Djokovic is actually there. So is Carlos Alcaraz.
We don't need
there.
the Paris Masters anymore because we got that practice tie break between Djokovic and Alcaraz. Already last night.
They lost their minds over that.
I know. We just
like
never saw that
over.
between like Federer and Nadal, did we? Like in like practice mode.
Well, no, but
There's
so that's
cameras
already
everywhere now,
entertaining the fans. Andy Murray sadly already lost, like we said earlier, to Alex de Minaur. Yeah, Joel, you recovered yet from that?
No, really. I mean, again, similar position. He's been in that position against Alex de Minaur before in his last match, and these are the sorts of losses that hurt. And I think beyond that, these are the sorts of losses that make you question: should I continue playing? Because we never really associated Andy Murray as a player who cannot close out matches, but it seems that he's having a little bit of an issue at the moment, particularly against someone like an Alex de Minaur who, at the net at the finish, almost looked a bit sad in the handshake in terms of like, sorry, I had to do that to you. But it's a really tough moment for Andy Murray, and I think if there's ever a moment he's been reflecting on, do I call it quits at the end of the season? I think a defeat like this will give him a really long, hard look in the mirror.
I mean, he is the number 13 seed at the tournament, so being competitive and almost having it twice, it can also give you hope.
That's what's so frustrating, because the level is there, but the defeats will.
It gets tougher
sting.
to close. It really does. And I think people talk about it as when you're young, you don't think about it in that way. And now you really feel the pressure because you might not get other chances in the match, and it just happens. So, I mean, it's super, super tricky and super tough for fans. And I mean, if you're in a support camp, it's heartbreaking watching that sort of a result because he has been so close. But I mean, Paris is where we're going to find out who's going to be in the lineup for the ATP finals as well. So, I mean, when we come to predictions for this, it's almost saying, who do you think might make it? And I'm telling you, Hurkacz versus Calder, that might end up deciding it a little bit, in terms of that's a very tough early opponent to face for Hurkacz.
I thought that was the standout kind of first round from me because they're both in pretty good form, and they're both players that I predicted. Was it the other week?
Yes, you did, Kim.
Did very
still
well.
Bringing that one up, are you?
Still dining out on that.
Yeah. Who do you think's gonna do well? I mean, who's gonna win? One word.
Are we getting Alcaraz Djokovic proper?
I don't think so.
I don't think we're gonna get Alcaraz. No? I think he's been a bit rusty.
He's already admitted he's not 100% fit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Djokovic Medvedev.
I think that's looking likely as well. I think based on the Medvedev that I saw, I think we might get a Sinner Djokovic. I think that would be pretty enjoyable to see kind of where Sinner's level is at against Djokovic ahead of the ATP sort of finals. But I mean, it's going to be tough to see. I mean, maybe it will just be a case everyone loses early and, Tsitsipas, Zverev and Rune will qualify. I feel like that might be the most likely situation.
Yes, because they are, Tsitsipas, Zverev and Rune are in the 6th, 7th and 8th spot on the race. So they're the only three places that are kind of still not confirmed. Hurkacz, Fritz, Ruud and Tommy Paul, sort of the four below that. So let's see how it pans out. I think once Djokovic is back in the draw, it's hard to go against him really. But
what about Bublik? I'm going to say Bublik's going to win it.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes the Paris Masters does throw up a bit of a surprise. I mean, who knows? Adrian Manarino might throw a surprise.
Alexander Zverev. I keep telling you.
Okay, there are predictions. We'll look back and we'll think we need to say less words.
Well, we'll be back in a week to catch up on this and also the WTA finals. Will the court have lasted? Will there be a big hole in it before the end of the week?
That is the big question, listeners. But we're going to end it there for this latest talk catch-up. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us at Tennis Weekly HQ. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action still to come from the ATP and WTA tours.
We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and X. And the handle for all of those is @TennisWeeklyPod. You can purchase exclusive Tennis Weekly merch at etsy.com/shop/tennisweeklypodcast. You can email the show tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or check out our website tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next week at Tennis Weekly HQ for our next tour catch-up. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.